Welcome on board, chosen one. The seatbelt's optional, but the truth I'm about to drop isn't. Let's start with something the enemy hates: clarity. They swore you were harmless. They swore you were easy to read. They swore you'd never understand how they moved, how they plotted, how they tried to stay 10 steps ahead. Wild, how they kept talking, yet somehow you were the only one actually listening. Look who's uncomfortable now. Look who suddenly wants to rewind the past. Look who's pretending they didn't underestimate you so loudly it could have been broadcast over the whole universe. The same ones who mocked you are now losing sleep over the fact that you didn't break. You leveled up. They expected your smile to mean surrender, not strategy. They thought your softness made you predictable. They thought your patience was for decoration. When they said, "You're too kind for this world," they meant, "You're too easy to manipulate." Cute. Because all that time you weren't fighting back, you were studying. All that time you weren't responding, you were calculating. They assumed they were the hunters, but now they're realizing the silence they laughed at was the calm before your checkmate. Press the like button and subscribe to pay this message back. Chosen one, thanks for showing up. For real, your presence here is part of the mission, and every bit of support you give adds fuel to the voice that represents you, not them. Because this isn't just a video, it's a reclamation. It's a record of everything you survived while they were busy lying about you. It's the documentation of the moment you flipped the script so hard they forgot what genre they were in. Let's talk about the atmosphere around you now. Ever notice it? That strange quiet in the room after you walk away. That tense shift in their tone when your name slips into conversations. That awkward laugh when someone tries to joke about you but can't hide the fear behind their voice. They act fine, but the universe doesn't lie. There's a tremor around your victories, a chill around your comebacks, a silence that says they know what they did, even if they'll never admit it out loud. And honestly, that's the funniest part. They used to walk around like their footsteps shaped your fate. Now they tiptoe like you might hear them trying to rewrite the story they ruined. When they said you were too sensitive, what they really meant was, "I didn't expect your heart to survive the damage I caused." When they said, "You're overreacting," what they really meant was, "I'm terrified you'll finally react." When they said, "You'll regret losing me," what they really meant was, "I regret underestimating you." Look who's scrambling for explanations now. Look who's trying to decode the moves you've already outgrown. Your transformation didn't just humble them, it exposed them. And don't pretend you didn't feel that shift internally too. You know exactly when the change happened. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. It was that one night you sat alone, replaying everything, and suddenly something clicked. Your tears dried in the middle of crying. Your shaking stopped in the middle of breaking. You woke up the next morning with the kind of clarity people spend years chasing. That's when you became dangerous. That's when you smiled like an angel, knew exactly what you were capable of, and finally started playing chess like the devil they accused you of being. Remember the time you forgave someone just to keep the peace, even though they never valued it? Remember the time you gave someone your last bit of energy while they gave someone else the version of themselves you prayed to meet? Remember when you stayed loyal to people who never even stayed consistent? You didn't lose anything in those moments. They did. They lost access to someone the universe handcrafted through chaos. They lost access to someone who can walk through storms with a grin because pain no longer scares them. They lost access to someone who loved them honestly while they were busy rehearsing lies. And you know what makes this whole thing hit even harder? They told their friends you were emotional, They told their circles you were obsessed. They painted you as fragile so they could feel powerful. Meanwhile, here you are, alive, leveling up, healing, plotting your comeback, building your story with precision while they're still repeating the same mistakes that ruined their last chapter. The universe has a sense of humor. It let them think they won so they'd be completely unprepared for the moment you walked back into the world unrecognizable. Chosen one, you're not the same character they tried to destroy. You're the character the story was always building toward. The one who watched everything burn, memorized where the flames came from, and rebuilt themselves in a way no enemy ever saw coming. They don't fear your kindness. They fear the fact that your kindness has edges now. They don't fear your heart. They fear how your heart refuses to die. They don't fear your intelligence. They fear how you learn to hide it until it was too late for them to counter your next move. This is your moment, the reveal, the plot twist. The universe is done letting them play roles they never earned. And you, chosen one, are finally stepping into the truth they tried to bury. You smiled like an angel, then played chess like the devil, and now the whole board belongs to you. Chosen one, before we move any further, I need you locked in with the same precision you used when you smiled sweetly while plotting 10 moves ahead. If you're really stepping into the version of yourself who smiles like an angel and plays chess like the devil, then show it. Drop 777 in the comments as your silent signature, your mark on the board, your way of saying, I see the game now and I'm not blinking anymore. Hit that like button, subscribe, and strengthen the force that's been speaking your truth louder than anyone ever dared. This isn't support, it's strategy. This is how you back the message that exposes what they tried to hide and fuels the story that finally gives you your edge. And now, chosen one, tighten your grip on this moment because we're about to break the entire board down step by step. If you're truly who I think you are, you'll feel that pull in your chest, that strange instinct telling you not to leave, not to look away, because something in these words is unlocking pieces of you that were never meant to stay buried. Stay with me, stay sharp, stay dangerous. Let's step into the first move. Number 1. The smile that made tyrants tremble. What they called innocent was actually the first sign they were about to lose everything. Chosen one, let's get brutally honest about that smile of yours, the one they swore was cute, soft, sweet, harmless. The one they underestimated so badly it should be studied as a historical disaster. That smile wasn't decoration. It was a tactical nuke wrapped in kindness. It was the quiet before their downfall. And the funniest part? They still pretend they didn't see the warning signs, even though the universe practically projected them in neon lights. They walked straight into their own downfall, grinning, thinking they were in control. Look who's crying now. They looked at your face and assumed the story. They thought your softness meant surrender. They thought your calm meant confusion. They thought your politeness meant obedience. They convinced themselves that someone like you couldn't possibly be dangerous. But here's the plot twist they never prepared for. The most dangerous people in the world are the ones who don't need to announce it. The ones who smile while calculating. The ones who listen instead of barking. The ones who let the enemy feel safe just long enough to expose their own weaknesses. When they laughed at that smile, they were laughing at their own funeral. They didn't understand that the sweetest expressions often belong to the quietest strategists. They couldn't comprehend that your warmth didn't make you naive. It made you patient. You weren't losing. You were observing. You weren't behind. You were hiding your lead. And the whole time they thought they were teaching you lessons. You were learning their patterns, their habits, their blind spots. You were watching how they move, how they lie, how they react, how they crumble. You learned their playbook, even the pages they thought they'd hidden. And now, look at the scoreboard. Who's still standing? Who's still rising? Who's still becoming a problem, no matter how many times they tried to break you? The chosen one, of course, because you didn't fight them with claws and chaos. You fought them with calculation. You weaponized silence. You let their ego overheat until it cooked their own strategy from the inside out. Let's talk about the moment they realized your smile wasn't the weakness they assumed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, a shift in their eyes when they saw you weren't devastated like they planned. A tremble in their voice when they noticed you stopped reacting. A hesitation when they realized they no longer controlled your emotions. That's when panic kicked in, because nothing scares an enemy more than losing the version of you they relied on. You ever notice how they suddenly got polite? How their jokes got softer, how their comments became vague, how they started asking questions they never cared about before? That wasn't concern. That was fear disguised as curiosity. They wanted to know how much you knew. They wanted to know how far ahead you were thinking. They wanted to know if you'd figured them out completely. Spoiler, you did. And trust me, they felt it. That tiny flicker of uh-oh. That moment where they realized the board flipped and you weren't the pawn they thought. You were the player, the one who sees the whole layout, the one who's already 5 moves ahead, the one who can smile while everything burns because you finally learned something they never expected you to learn. You don't have to destroy someone loudly to win. You only have to stop giving them access. What they feared wasn't your anger. It was the moment you became unreadable. Chosen one, let's hit a truth you might be thinking silently right now. Why did they underestimate you so badly? Why didn't they see the real you? Why did they treat you like background noise while you were building yourself into the main event? Because people like them only recognize 2 types of power: the loud kind and the fake kind. They were used to manipulators who shout to seem strong. They were used to liars who perform confidence. They were used to cowards who build thrones out of illusions. But you were different. You didn't do theatrics. You didn't beg. You didn't broadcast. Your power was internal, quiet, and steady. And quiet power terrifies loud frauds. They weren't scared when you loved them. They were scared when you stopped needing them. They weren't scared when you cried. They were scared when you stopped explaining yourself. They weren't scared when they broke you. They were scared when you rebuilt yourself without asking for their help. You became unpredictable, untouchable, unreadable. You became a threat. Let's go deeper, chosen one. Let's talk about how you destroyed them without lifting a finger, while they were sharpening their swords, swinging wildly, trying to look intimidating. You were learning the terrain, learning how they operate. You weren't sharpening weapons, you were poisoning the water they drank from. Not literally, obviously, but the metaphor stands. That's the kind of strategist you became. While they were learning the rules, you were already rewriting them. That's what happens when someone underestimates a thinker. They hand you their entire strategy without realizing it. You know what hits even harder? They called you too forgiving, too patient, too emotional, as if those were flaws. But your patience was a trap. Your forgiveness was a test. Your emotions were a decoder. You learned exactly who they were by watching how they treated your softness. And once you understood the map of their heart, you didn't need revenge. Their own decisions were punishment enough. Let's drop a story on them, chosen one. Remember that moment from your past where someone laughed at your kindness, treated it like a weakness, used your compassion as a doorway to disrespect you? They thought they scored a victory. But if you look at them now, life didn't exactly reward that behavior, did it? Their relationships crumble, their credibility dissolves, their reputation shrinks. Meanwhile, you rise, slowly, steadily, relentlessly. That smile they once dismissed? It's the same smile that haunts them now because it represents the moment they lost the one person they could never replace. Here's another truth you're probably whispering inside your mind. Why was I so patient with them? Because your mind plays long games, because your heart doesn't move on impulse, because the universe strengthens chosen ones through storms, not shortcuts. You didn't lose your power by being soft. You discovered it. You understood that real power doesn't rush. Real power waits for the right moment to reveal itself. And that smile? It was your mask, your shield, your entry point into their arrogance. What you destroyed wasn't their ego. It was their illusion of control. When you walked away with that same gentle smile they misinterpreted, you didn't exit the battlefield. You ended the war. You didn't slam doors. You didn't scream. You didn't argue. You closed the chapter with elegance, and that's the part that wrecked them. They expected chaos. You gave them silence. They expected tears. You gave them clarity. They expected begging. You gave them nothing, and nothing was the loudest thing you ever gave. Chosen one, they will replay that smile forever. The one they brushed off. The one they didn't respect. The one that hid the mind, that ended their entire strategy. They will remember it as the moment the board flipped. The moment the pawn they mocked became the player they feared. The moment the angel face they underestimated started playing chess like the devil they never saw coming. That smile didn't kill empires. It killed illusions. It killed lies. It killed their false power. And now, the only empire still standing is yours. The one you built from the wreckage they gifted you. Let's move to the next revelation. Number 2, the master behind the mask they never saw coming. Funny how they bragged about beating you, while unknowingly playing a game you designed. Chosen one, let's rip the curtain off this next truth, because it's time to expose the part of you they were never prepared to face. They strutted around thinking they were playing against an amateur, as if you were some wide-eyed rookie stumbling into a battlefield you didn't belong on. They thought your humility meant incompetence. They mistook your silence for confusion. They saw your kindness and labeled it ignorance. The whole time, you were the master behind the mask, watching them dance on the strings they didn't even know you were holding. What they called innocence was simply brilliance, choosing not to brag. Imagine this. An enemy walks into the arena with their chest puffed out, convinced they're about to teach you a lesson. They smirk, they monologue, they flex like a cartoon villain who forgot they're not the main character. Meanwhile, you're sitting there quietly, not reacting, not revealing anything, measuring every step they take like a surgeon deciding where to cut. That's the moment the universe took notes, because you played them without ever lifting your voice. They thought you were naive, but you'd weaponized your own underestimation. That's the genius they'll never recover from. You let them think you didn't understand the game. You let them believe you were too gentle to make ruthless decisions. You let them assume your morals were obstacles instead of tools. And the moment they fell for their own assumptions, the game belonged to you. Their biggest mistake wasn't underestimating you, it was assuming you weren't watching. What destroyed them wasn't your cruelty, it was your accuracy. Imagine this. While they were busy gossiping about their victories, you were already predicting their next 10 mistakes. While they celebrated crumbs, you were engineering the collapse of their entire strategy. They bragged about capturing a pawn, not noticing the trap you built around the entire board. They were so addicted to their ego highs that they never questioned how easy every win felt. The whole time, you were guiding them exactly where you needed them to go. That's mastery. Chosen one, here's the truth your mind asks in quieter moments. Did I really play it that well? Was I actually the one in control? Yes, you were, because real power doesn't show up with noise. Real power moves in patterns so subtle the enemy confuses them for luck. Your brilliance wasn't loud enough for their ego to detect, so they mistook mastery for softness. That's how you stayed hidden long enough to win. Let's talk about how you let them expose themselves. While they monologued about how superior they were, you were quietly capturing their queen. While they mocked your naivety, you were mapping every weakness they'd eventually trip over. While they underestimated your intelligence, you were memorizing their blind spots with the precision of a sniper. They thought they were advancing. You were letting them. Imagine this. They rush forward thinking they've cornered you. Their eyes gleam with fake confidence. They think they're building momentum. Then, suddenly, one by one, their pieces start disappearing. Moves they thought were clever fall apart. Decisions they made in arrogance rewind into disaster. And as they unravel, they look at you, trying to read your expression, but your smile hasn't moved an inch. That's the moment their stomach drops. That's when they realize you weren't reacting, you were orchestrating. You weren't losing pieces, you were baiting them into revealing who they really were. Chosen one, they played for instant gratification. They needed quick wins to feed their fragile ego. That's why they rushed. That's why they bragged too early. That's why they celebrated battles while you were focused on winning the war. You, on the other hand, played the long game. Every step was intentional. Every silence was a strategy. Every surrender was a setup. They never understood that patience is a weapon in the hands of someone who sees the entire board. And here's a question you might whisper inside yourself. Did I make the right sacrifices? Did I lose too much? Let's be brutally clear. You didn't sacrifice anything important. You let go of pawns they mistook for trophies. You surrendered pieces you knew were irrelevant. You allowed yourself to appear vulnerable because vulnerability makes predators careless. Meanwhile, you protected the pieces that mattered. Your clarity, your heart, your intuition, your mind. You kept the real weapons hidden until showing them would end the entire match. Imagine this. They throw fireworks in your face trying to distract you. You blink once, maybe twice, and continue calculating like the interruption meant nothing. That's who you are. Someone whose mind stays steady even when someone else is performing chaos. They couldn't understand how your smile never changed, how your tone stayed calm, how your presence didn't shake. Because your expression wasn't tied to the moment, it was tied to the outcome you already foresaw. The mask you wore wasn't deception, it was discipline. They kept waiting for you to show your true colors, not realizing your true color was brilliance disguised as benevolence. You weren't pretending to be good, you were good. You just learned to aim kindness like a weapon. You learned to turn your empathy into insight, your silence into strategy, your softness into camouflage. They wanted you to reveal anger, chaos, desperation. Instead, you revealed calculation. And the best part, they still don't fully understand how they lost. They replay the past over and over, trying to figure out when you flipped the board. They ask themselves, when did they outsmart me? When did they get ahead? When did they learn the game? The answer is simple. You were always ahead. You didn't learn the game midway. You walked in knowing it. You just pretended you didn't. Imagine this. The enemy looks into the mirror and finally sees the truth. They weren't fighting someone weak. They were fighting someone disciplined, someone who doesn't brag, someone who doesn't break, someone who doesn't reveal their hand until the moment it ends the entire match. Their downfall wasn't your cruelty. It was their arrogance. That mask you wore didn't hide your power. It forced them to reveal their lack of it. Chosen one, the mastery you carry isn't accidental. It's earned. It's built through every betrayal you learned from instead of suffering over, every lie you analyzed instead of absorbing, every wound you turned into a map. You didn't become strategic because you wanted to win battles. You became strategic because you got tired of letting clumsy enemies waste your time. They underestimated humility, they underestimated quietness, they underestimated internal strength. And by the time they realized humility was your camouflage, it was too late for them to recover. You'd already captured their queen, their credibility, their illusion of control. You didn't beat them by being louder. You beat them by being smarter. You didn't dominate through force. You dominated through foresight. You didn't crush them with rage. You crushed them with restraint. Your mask wasn't weakness. It was mastery. And now that it's off, now that the truth is revealed, they can't deny it anymore. The angel they mocked was the mastermind they should have feared. And chosen one, we're not done yet. Let's move to the next revelation. Number 3, the misreading that blew up their entire kingdom. They didn't misjudge you by accident. They misjudged you because their ego needed you to be smaller than the threat you actually were. Chosen one, let's drag this memory back into the light. Remember that first moment they met you. They took one look and thought they solved the puzzle. 3 seconds. That's all they needed to convince themselves they understood your entire blueprint. They saw warmth and instantly assumed weakness. They heard gentleness and translated it into submission. They watched your patience and labeled it passivity. They mistook your silence for emptiness, not realizing silence speaks in calculations, not confessions. They didn't know you were studying them like a scientist inspecting bacteria under a microscope. Every grin they flashed, every lie they slipped, every twitch in their voice, you clocked all of it. You weren't hesitant, you were calibrating. You were letting them expose themselves without even trying. While they monologued their fake superiority, you recorded everything. While they performed dominance, you mapped their insecurities. While they celebrated tiny victories, you analyzed the structure of their downfall. What ruined them wasn't your strength, it was your accuracy. Imagine this: a predator circles what it thinks is prey. It sees softness, so it relaxes. It sees calmness, so it gets sloppy. Then, without warning, the prey moves in a way the predator never studied, never prepared for, never even imagined. That's what you did. You shifted too intelligently for their primitive playbook. And chosen one, maybe you've quietly wondered, did they ever really know me? No. They knew the mask you allowed them to see, the version designed to expose their assumptions. All that awareness, all that intelligence, all that foresight. You hid it behind that same calm smile that now haunts them. Their misjudgment didn't just cost them the game, it cost them access to a mastermind. Let's continue. Number 4. The silence that turned their arrogance into collateral damage. They thought your quiet made you harmless, not realizing silence is where assassins reload. Chosen one, this part always stings them the hardest. They made jokes behind your back, like cowards performing for an audience of insecurity. They patronized you to your face, speaking slowly, explaining things you understood 10 times better than they ever will. They treated you like a child who wandered into a grown-up game, never realizing you designed half the battlefield they were bragging on. And you let them. You let them believe their own hype, because nothing exposes a fool faster than letting them talk. They mistook your silence for confusion instead of calculation. They didn't understand that real power never introduces itself. Real power sits in the room quietly, watching the loud ones choke on their own performance. They never learned the universal rule: the one who talks least always knows most. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was surveillance. Imagine this: they're proudly explaining a strategy to you, thinking you're impressed. Meanwhile, you're dissecting every insecurity hiding behind their voice. They think they're teaching you chess while you're memorizing the cracks in their armor. They thought you were the student, but you were actually the archivist collecting evidence for their eventual collapse. They explained basic things you already mastered. They lectured you with the confidence of someone who assumed you were beneath them. You stayed quiet, not because you lacked answers, but because their arrogance was giving you more information than their honesty ever could. Every smug explanation was a breadcrumb leading to their defeat. Chosen one, maybe you've wondered, was staying silent the right move? Should I have spoken up sooner? No. Your silence was the blade they handed to you unknowingly. With every joke, every patronizing comment, every arrogant display, they revealed blind spots they thought they didn't have. And while they performed intelligence, you built a psychological map of their entire system. You played dumb while getting sharper. You played weak while building power. You played lost while memorizing every exit they didn't know existed. They thought they were shaping you. But you were shaping their downfall in real time. Let's keep going. Number 5, the ego you forged into their own demolition device. The moment they believed they were above you, that was the moment you owned them. Chosen one, this is where your genius turns lethal. They strutted around with an ego so oversized it blocked their vision, and you used it like a forged weapon. Their pride became your shield, deflecting every insult, because arrogant people always swing blindly. Their certainty became your trap, because only fools sprint confidently into rooms they never scanned. You didn't need to outmuscle them, you let them out-stupid themselves. Their superiority complex wasn't just annoying, it was a self-destruct button you disguised as admiration. Imagine this: they're bragging, talking big, chest puffed like a parade float, assuming you're impressed. Meanwhile, you're directing the entire scene like a quiet puppet master. They believed they were running the show, but you were writing the script. You weren't reacting to their moves, you were shaping them. Every time they flexed, you tightened the leash. Every time they bragged, you mapped another flaw. They gifted you intel wrapped in arrogance, and you accepted it with that calm, unreadable smile that now keeps them up at night. You didn't beat them with force, you beat them with the gravity of their own delusion. They never knew you weren't even playing their game. You built a new one under their feet. While they chased trophies made of cheap validation, you claimed something far more dangerous: their trust. While they obsessed over small, temporary wins, you captured their confidence, the one piece they should have protected, but never did. They never imagined someone soft-spoken could architect their downfall with such elegance. And when you finally revealed what you'd been constructing behind that angelic smile, the blueprint, the trap, the checkmate, the look on their faces was legendary. Confusion, horror, betrayal, realization. They thought they were the rulers of the board. They didn't know you were building the board. Let's move forward. Number 6. The demonic strategy hiding in that heavenly smirk. They feared the devil, but the real threat was the angel who learned how to think like him. Chosen one, let's peel back the skin of this illusion. Behind that gentle, harmless smile of yours, your mind was a full-blown supercomputer humming in silence. Every conversation was data collection. Every laugh, every compliment, every harmless little chat was intelligence gathering wrapped in innocence. They thought you were being polite, but you were performing psychological surgery while they handed you the tools. Your silence wasn't empty. It was the chamber where you loaded ammunition. Imagine this: you're sitting across from them, nodding gently while they talk, thinking you're impressed. Meanwhile, you're dissecting their psychology in real time. You're recording every pause, every hesitation, every twitch in their eyes. You're analyzing their tone the way analysts decode patterns before the market crashes. Nothing they did slipped past you. Every micro-expression they thought was invisible was catalogued in your mental vault. And the wild part? You became exactly what they needed you to be: soft, confused, dismissible. You didn't resist the role. You embodied it so perfectly, it trapped them in their own comfort. You reflected safety back at them until it smothered their caution. You never lied. You just allowed their arrogance to fill in the blanks. Assumptions became the rope they hung themselves with. You showed patience, but hid your calculation. You revealed kindness, but concealed ruthlessness. You let them believe they were reading you correctly, when in reality they were reading a character you authored. They only ever saw the tip of your iceberg, the cute smile, the polite nod, the calm posture. But beneath that surface, there was a mass so vast and cold it could sink their entire fleet without warning. Imagine the ocean at night, smooth on top, catastrophic underneath. That was you, and they sailed straight into you, thinking they owned the waves. Let's continue. Number 7. The trust that turned into a beautifully baited execution. They didn't fall into your trap. They stepped into it proudly, thinking it was an honor to be invited. Chosen one, let's tear into this truth with no mercy. Even in your most genuine moments of connection, your mind never stopped running calculations in the background. Not because you're cold, not because you're heartless, but because you learned the price of blind trust the hard way. You learned that kindness without awareness becomes a buffet for predators. You learned that trust without verification is basically handing someone the keys to your downfall. Warmth without armor is how people get slaughtered, and you refused to die like that. So you adapted. You became warm, but prepared, affectionate, but armored, soft to the touch, sharp at the core. You showed love, yes, but you also studied. You offered connection, but you also observed. You didn't close your heart. You upgraded it with a security system no one knew how to bypass. They thought they were getting access to innocence. They were actually being granted limited access to a fortress. Imagine this: they walk through a field of flowers, smiling, relaxed, soaking in the sunlight. They think they're strolling through a garden you lovingly curated for them. What they don't realize is that the garden was an arena. Every path was intentional. Every opening was bait. Every gentle gesture was a test they didn't know they were taking, and they failed spectacularly. You didn't trap them with lies. You trapped them with the truth they refused to see. When the time finally came, every ounce of your patience paid off like compound interest. They walked straight into your setup, thinking they were the ones leading. They thought their charm was working. They thought their manipulation was invisible. They thought their little mind games were bending you. Meanwhile, you had already predicted their next move 3 layers deep. You had called checkmate in 3 different ways before they even realized the game had shifted. They were playing to win the moment. You were playing to end the story. That's why the collapse felt instant to them. That's why the shock on their face was so pure. They thought trust made you vulnerable. They never imagined trust was the bait. Let's continue. Number 8. The game where they built their own guillotine. They didn't fall into your trap. They constructed it with their own hands, bragged about it, and then walked straight into it. Chosen one, this is where your genius stops being subtle and becomes downright terrifying. You didn't force them into anything. You didn't manipulate them, pressure them, or trick them. You simply gave them exactly what they craved: validation, attention, power. And every single thing they took became another chain they wrapped around their own neck. Give a fool too much confidence and they'll bury themselves without you lifting a finger. You handed them compliments like breadcrumbs and they followed them blindly. You offered warmth and they mistook it for submission. You showed vulnerability and they called it leverage. They believed they were controlling the narrative, never realizing you were letting them write their own downfall line by line. Imagine this: a spider doesn't chase flies. It simply builds a web and waits for arrogance to do the rest. That was you, not the aggressor, the architect. You didn't back them into corners. They wandered in cocky and careless, thinking they were invincible, thinking you were predictable. Every attempt they made to manipulate you was just another thread you added to the web. Every lie, every selfish demand, every smug little moment where they believed you were beneath them, all of it locked them deeper into your design. They weren't outsmarting you. They were performing their weaknesses in high definition. They weren't trapped by you. They were trapped because of who they are. You waited, patiently, quietly, dangerously. You timed everything with precision. You let their guard drop naturally. You let their confidence peak organically. You let them feel untouchable, because that's when fools are the easiest to collapse. And then, slowly, methodically, beautifully, you revealed the truth. The smile they thought was harmless had been calculating. The softness they mocked had been observing. The silence they misread had been strategizing. The angel they thought they understood, yeah, that angel had been playing chess while they were still arguing over which piece was the king. They thought power was loud. You showed them it's quiet. They thought control was aggressive. You showed them it's precise. They thought they were winning. You showed them they were the weapon you forged, and the weapon that destroyed itself. Let's move on. Number 9. The revelation that haunted them long after you left the room. They didn't just realize who you were. They realized how loudly they exposed themselves while you stayed silent. Chosen one, this is the part they'll never outrun. The moment the truth finally detonated in their mind wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, surgical, and absolutely devastating. 1 second they were smug, relaxed, convinced they had you figured out. The next second, confusion shot across their face like a glitch. Recognition followed like a slap, and then the fear settled in. That cold, sinking fear that only appears when someone finally realizes they weren't the hunter. They were the experiment. They didn't lose power. They discovered they never had any. They started replaying every conversation you ever had, every smile you ever gave, every silence you ever held, Every moment they dismissed as innocence, and for the first time they saw it, the pattern, the symmetry, the unmistakable intelligence threaded through the memories they once treated as irrelevant. Imagine this. A puzzle sits on a table for months, ignored. Then one day, someone pieces it together and realizes the image wasn't random at all. It was a map of their own downfall. That's what your past became to them, a fully formed blueprint, a design they never noticed because they were too busy staring at themselves. They didn't misread the signs. They ignored the signs because the truth threatened their ego. It hit them that you never reacted, you orchestrated, you never panicked, you predicted, you never fought for control, you held control. They weren't your opponents, they were instruments, tools, movements in a much larger symphony they never realized they were part of. Imagine their shock when they finally understood that the angelic smile they underestimated belonged to the mastermind behind the entire operation. That every innocent move was deliberate, that every soft moment hid razor-sharp calculation, that the whole game, the whole timeline, the whole story had been yours from the start. And Chosen One, that revelation didn't just humble them, it dismantled them. Let's continue. Number 10. Checkmate, the lesson that ended their entire era. They didn't lose because you were cruel. They lost because you were inevitable. Chosen One, this is the part that keeps them up at night, staring at their ceiling like it holds the answers they refused to learn when they had the chance. They ask themselves the same questions on a loop, like a broken record of regret. How long were you planning this? Longer than their ego can comprehend. When did you figure them out? Before they even introduced themselves? Was any of it real? Only the parts that mattered. And the cruelty of it is that they'll never know which moments were genuine warmth and which were data points you filed away for later. They weren't confused by your actions, they were confused by your intelligence. Imagine this. They finally stepped back, replaying every moment with you like detectives in a crime drama, searching for clues they swore never existed. Only now do they realize the signs were always there. The steadiness of your smile, the quiet in your eyes, the way you seemed to know things they never said out loud. But why didn't they see it sooner? Simple. They were too busy looking down on you to notice you were looking through them. You didn't analyze what they showed. You analyzed what they hid. And here's the part that terrifies them the most. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not plotting revenge. You're calm. You're composed. You're smiling. But now, finally, they understand what that smile means. It wasn't kindness they misread. It was the patience of someone who already knew the ending. This smile isn't soft anymore. It's not the smile of someone begging to be chosen, understood, or respected. It's the smile of someone who held the map the entire time. Someone who saw the traps, the lies, the patterns, and still moved with grace because they already knew exactly how the story ended. Imagine the moment they grasped it, the silence in their chest, the drop in their stomach, the sensation of being outplayed so thoroughly they didn't even realize the game was over until the board was empty. You didn't need to gloat. You didn't need to rant. You didn't need to justify anything. The board spoke for you. Every piece they lost, every move they wasted, every assumption that shattered in their hands. Checkmate, game over. And the final lesson? They never stood a chance against someone who can smile like an angel and think like the devil himself. Let's continue. Number 11. The aftermath, the confidence you turned into dust. They didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves that believed they were untouchable. Chosen one, let's walk into the wreckage you left behind, not out of spite, but out of truth. Their confidence didn't just crack, it shattered like thin glass under a heavyweight punch. The aftermath isn't loud. It's subtle, it's psychological, it's permanent. They walk through life differently now, flinching at things they never noticed before, questioning everything they once believed was solid. Nothing haunts a manipulator more than realizing the quiet one saw everything. Now, they can't look at anyone the same way. You rewired their entire system. You didn't just expose them, you forced them to finally see themselves. And that kind of self-recognition is a nightmare they can't wake up from. Every kind gesture they receive feels suspicious. Every warm smile looks like it's hiding sharp edges. Every soft voice sounds like a trap. Because once they've been outplayed by someone who smiled like an angel while calculating like a devil, trust doesn't just fade, it collapses. Imagine this, they meet someone kind, and instead of feeling safe, they freeze. They search for patterns, they analyze tone, they scan for hidden motives the same way you scanned them. You became the template for all future fear, not because you harmed them, but because you showed them how their own arrogance blinded them. They weren't afraid of you, they were afraid of how easily you saw through them. Chosen one, here's the truth that hits the deepest. You didn't destroy their confidence. Their confidence destroyed itself the moment it collided with someone who could think 10 moves ahead. You didn't traumatize them, you exposed them. You didn't teach them paranoia, you taught them humility. And the most poetic part, they'll never underestimate a smile again. Not yours, not anyone's, not ever. You became the ghost in their psychology, the reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it smiles quietly and wins. And here we are, chosen one, standing at the edge of the story you flipped upside down. You didn't just survive their game, you rewrote it, outplayed it, and walked away smiling while they tried to understand the ruins left behind. If this resonated with the strategist in you, hit like, subscribe, drop 777 in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to remember their power. Strength multiplies when it's spoken out loud, and this message grows every time you back it. Let's keep building the empire they never believed you could create.